One of my favorite late summer bloomers that usually graces the garden in September is sweet autumn clematis. Now the interesting thing about this one is it's growing in nearly full shade. It's growing under the shade of a very large European copper beech. And look at it, it is still blooming magnificently. Now the echinacea are pretty much done. You can still see some of the pale pink petals on them, but what I've really been enjoying is watching the finches come and take the seeds. But what is blooming behind them on either side of this moai statue is some very lovely autumn joy sedum, which is just getting going at this point. And rising up behind it, you can see the rudbeckia, which is another one that goes well into September. Now kind of sandwiched in the middle here, but not doing too much yet, although it is getting started, is some of the fall anemone. This is the Hydrangea bear. As I said, it's just getting started. In fact, there's one flower. Here is a little bit of tall garden phlox mixed in with the autumn joy sedum. And here's a close-up of the rudbeckia, black-eyed Susan, looking absolutely lovely. And here is some lovely obedient plant. This is another late bloomer. And above it there is some white butterfly bush, buddleia, still blooming. And then of course the hydrangea here, this is the bloomstruck hydrangea, is pretty much done for the season, but the flowers still have a nice color. And this is kind of sad, the woodchuck, and I know it was the woodchuck because I saw it up here, went to town on this echinacea. And you can see it absolutely stripped the entire plant. But there are still seed heads. So what I'm thinking of doing is cutting off the seed heads and making bunches and hanging them where our bird feeders are, because the finches really enjoy these. We have been very disturbed by the fact that we can't have the bird feeders up because the black bear keeps coming around. And now the woodchuck has come in and has knocked a whole lot of the echinacea down, and I had been so enjoying watching the finches come and feed on it. So what I've done is I have taken all of those echinacea branches with the seed heads on them that the woodchuck knocked over. I've made them into bunches and tied them to my fence. And next thing is to see whether or not those finches find this attractive and will come to them anyway, even though they're not down on the plants anymore. We'll see what happens. And here's a rose that we've been particularly happy with this year. This is Soul Desire. Foliage isn't perfect, but it actually was quite disease and insect resistant compared to some other types of roses we have. And that very pretty buttery yellow color. Like some yellow roses, or unlike some yellow roses, they don't change to a very white color as they age. They still keep a very nice yellow, which we were very happy about. Hydrangea colors change quite dramatically once the late summer comes in, and this one is a bobo, And you can see there's still one beautiful pure white flower, which is what all of these looked like a little earlier in the season. And now they're going kind of a greenish color with pink accents to it. Still very, very pretty. Here's a hydrangea that really changed. This is Gatsby Moon oak leaf hydrangea. Huge, huge flowers on it. But they went from being this pure white to being sort of a coppery brown color. Still very interesting looking, but there was very little transition in between it, going from white to brown, and it may have had something to do with the weather as well. And then right alongside it is some autumn brilliance fern. Now, autumn brilliance fern is a semi-evergreen fern, and it gets its name from the changes in color that it goes through. You can see that many of the fronds are turning that very orangey color at this point. Now, if you've been watching my channel, you know that I absolutely love the Japanese forest grass, the Hokona cloa grass. And this time of year, it's going to flower. And I still think it's very, very interesting. You get 3 wonderful seasons out of this grass. We've also got some lovely variegated liriope starting to bloom. The Joe Pye weed is looking great, and this really is a pollinator magnet. There are always all kinds of bees and wasps, different things on them. Right now, I'd have to say there's got to be 100 bees in amongst these flowers. And then next to it is the incredible hydrangea, which has gone completely green at this point. Still very pretty together. The little quickfire hydrangea has gone very, very red. And I think it's about at the point that I should be able to pick it to dry. This is another one, like all hydrangea. If you wait until they've dried a little bit on the plant, you have better luck when you go to pick them. For drying for the winter, that is. And underneath it, we still have some nice Rudbeckia blooming. And this absolutely lovely dwarf rose of Sharon, which I showed you in a previous video. And a Miss Molly Buddleia. I don't know if you can see, there's some little butterflies on it. I love that color. And the Shasta daisies that I cut back are reblooming, although something is eating the petals. But if you notice, this is these are ones that I cut back shortly after they finished blooming, and you can see there's lots of buds on them. So behind the Shasta daisies that are reblooming, you can see that there is some purple haze agastache, also some Verbena bonariensis popping up here. And at the feet of those plants is some Helen von Stein's tachys, or lamb's ear. The parade of roses continues. This is some peach drift rose. And the peachy hydrangea tree is also starting to take on a slightly pink coloration. These flowers are absolutely gorgeous. Here is a little bit more of the honorine Joe Bear fall anemone. Again, just getting going. I really enjoy these though because they do come out so late in the season. And next to it is a pugster white butterfly bush, still putting out new blooms, as well as some Verbena bonariensis. And you can see on the sedum, and these are just starting to open up, but you can see all of the bees on them. This is Calm St. John's wort, and it's done flowering, but it's starting to form its berries, which are always a lot of fun to see. And tucked in next to it is a true dwarf boxwood, a very large true dwarf boxwood, as well as a little devil ninebark. Nice color differential between them. And then in the back, this is actually a weed. This is jewelweed, but you know, it's kind of pretty with those bluish tinged leaves and the very gold flowers. And then right next to it is ironweed, New York ironweed, which is another late bloomer with a beautiful color. There's a little bit of that behind it too. I'll just show you what these colors kind of look like together. It's actually a pretty combination. And then as we move over, we've got some golden anniversary abelia, which needs to be pruned. And a bed here with a bird bath and a very cute lighthouse on it. And here's another bed that I think has some very pretty colors. There's a wolf-eyed dogwood, same as the one on the other side of the yard that we ended up protecting with a fence. That fence will probably come down in the next year or so, only because when it was a sapling, the deer were eating it like crazy. And there's another pugster blue buddleia. There was some dicentra in here, which has died back, and I've cut it back. But we have a mix here of Ogon grass. We've got some cat mint in here, some Chamaecyparis, also some Mimonae Weigela, and then this little guy is a happy face white potentilla, which bloomed earlier in the season. And I have Ogon grass kind of planted at the feet of all of these, and that will stay evergreen. Now this is what we call Leia's garden, because that's what we named the statue in the middle. And this is a garden that we planted specifically with critter control in mind. And there are things in here that did very, very well, and some maybe not quite so well. This is baby foxglove. Of course, the foxglove is resistant to everything. That does great. And also peonies. And nothing touches the peonies. So those were a very good choice for this garden. Boxwood is always a reliable choice if you're worried about critters. And we have deer, rabbits, and woodchucks that are our primary concern. Another one that nothing touches, and you can see we've got quite a bit of it here all along the edges, is the lamb's ear. This is the Helen von Steinstachys. We also intersperse that with Nepeta, or catmint. And catmint is another one that nothing seems to touch. Now the Roseanne geranium, early in the season we had some issues with it being eaten, but then again we also had a doe with 2 fawns that were hanging around in the yard, and of course fawns will eat anything. So it seemed that once they got a little older, these were left alone. Now Agastache or hyssop is always a good choice. There are so many different kinds. You can see there's a purple one here, and then there's also this very red version. There are so many different colors. You just have to make sure that you don't get the ones that are only hardy in more southern zones. So you have to look at the hardiness. And then ornamental onion. These are done flowering, but the seed heads still look beautiful. And nothing has touched those either. This is a Pugster Blue butterfly bush. We've got 3 of them in this garden. Those have been very successful in the sense that nothing has tried to eat them. Also the bee balm. Bee balm is a very safe plant we've found. And here's a new one for us this year, but I'm very happy with it. This is a Caryopteris, but it is a variegated one. And I think it looks really pretty with the little blue flowers and the variegated foliage. And this is another one that has been very critter-proof. Now, of course, the sedum is not completely deer resistant. We find that early in the season they go after them, but usually once they start flowering, they leave them alone. And there's some Cleome in here. Another one of the Caryopteris I mentioned. And then this is Verbena bonariensis, and this is another one that none of the deer or rabbits or woodchucks seem to be interested in. And then we do have a little bit of Russian sage here, next to some more of the Monarda bee balm. And again, plants that the critters don't seem interested in. And we've repeated a lot of these same plants on this side of the garden. There's also some bearded iris tucked in here. Those we have fairly good luck with them not getting bothered. And then the other one that I really like that seems to be a relatively safe plant to put in is Gora. And the bees really like it at this time of year. Now there's some peony here, as well as a wedding ring boxwood. I do like the variegated boxwood, and those have been a good, safe, critter-resistant plant for us. Now, the plant that's in here is now growing very, very well. This is Japanese iris, but when we first put these in, the bunnies went nuts on them. It seemed, though, after a while, they seem to leave them alone. So I'm hopeful for next season. The Japanese painted fern and ghost fern all along this wall is still looking lovely. I really do enjoy this fern for its silvery color. While many of the sun planters have really had it at this point, they're done. The shade planters out front are looking absolutely beautiful. And I'm happy to say that my solution of adding a lot of Plectranthus to the planter seems to have kept the deer away. And here's the one on the other side of the steps, still looking absolutely lovely. Last year the deer came and ate all of the impatiens, but I'm thinking that strong scent of the Plectranthus was enough to dissuade them this year.